to expedite the removals of these savage gangs, and I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798. This was put there. 1798. That's a long time ago, right? To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil. We will send elite squads of ICE, Border Patrol, and federal law enforcement officers to hunt down, arrest, and deport every last illegal alien gang member until there is not a single one left in this country. And if they come back into our country...
I'm smiling, but it ain't funny, because sometimes you just smiling to hold back the other emotions. And you know, I ain't just that emotional about it, but it definitely ain't funny. I grew up in Bryan, Texas. When you grow up this close to the Mexico border, you always hear the conversations about immigration, and the conversations are always politically charged. As somebody that grew up really paying attention to politics at an early age, it's very disheartening to see how much immigration has become demonized and criminalized in the past like 15, 20 years, especially because I can remember speeches that really dictate that Overton window and how much things have changed in terms of what's appropriate to talk about and what's not appropriate to talk about. When I think about, I feel like it was George Bush and like Ronald Reagan or somebody that was going back and forth about, you know what I'm saying, being Mexican, you know?
Yes, my name is David Grossberg, and I'd like to know, do you think the children of illegal aliens should be allowed to attend Texas public schools free, or do you think that their parents should pay for their education?
Who are you addressing that to?
I think you're first in this.
He was looking right at you. I said he was. Look, I'd like to see something done about the illegal alien problem that would be so sensitive and so understanding about labor needs and human needs that that problem wouldn't come up. But today, if those people are here, I would reluctantly say I think they would get whatever it is that they're, you know, what the society is giving to their neighbors. But the problem has to be solved. The problem has to be solved because as we have kind of made illegal some kinds of labor that I'd like to see legal, we're doing two things. We're creating a whole society of really honorable, decent, family-loving people that are in violation of the law, and secondly, we're exacerbating relations with Mexico. The answer to your question is much more fundamental than whether they attend Houston schools, it seems to me. I don't want to see if they're living here, I don't want to see a whole thing of 6- and 8-year-old kids being made, you know, one totally uneducated and made to feel that they're living with outside the law. Let's address ourselves to the fundamentals. These are good people, strong people. Part of my family is a Mexican.
Can I add to that? I think the time has come that the United States and our neighbors, particularly our neighbor to the south, should have a better understanding and a better relationship than we've ever had. And I think that we haven't been sensitive enough to our size and our power. They have a problem of 40 to 50% unemployment. Now, this cannot continue without the possibility arising with regard to that other country that we talked about, of Cuba and what it is stirring up, of the possibility of trouble below the border, and we could have a very hostile and strange neighbor on our border. Rather than making them or talking about putting up a fence, why don't we work out some recognition of our mutual problems, make it possible for them to come here legally with a work permit, and then while they're working and earning here, they pay taxes here. And when they want to go back, they can go back, and they can cross and open the border both ways by understanding their problems. This is the only safety valve right now they have with that unemployment that probably keeps the lid from blowing off down there. And I think we could have a fine relationship, and it would solve the problem you mentioned also.
And right now in our current political climate,
where the f*** you're from?
There's been a way for Donald Trump to use immigration as a dog whistle to be able to really be anti-black at particular racialized immigrant communities like the Congolese people. Video right here.
The Congo has just released a lot of people from jail. Congo, Africa, just released a lot of people from their prisons and jails and brought them into the United States of America. This is what's happening to our country, and it's not sustainable by anyone.
Or, you know, examples like him being very anti-black towards Haitian people. Video right here.
In Springfield, They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
The three things I want you to take from this video when it comes to how immigration is talked about right now. The first thing is that immigration is being used as a dog whistle to rally a white supremacist base, or a base that is susceptible to like rallying for white supremacy. And it's something that we should be very vigilant about, because after they done trying to, pathologize immigrant populations, they're gonna be back to black folks. Sweater is available on the website, Education's Elevation. Y'all in multiple colors, man. Thank y'all for everybody that supported me. Doing a 3 free city tour in Atlanta, DC, and Houston, October, November, December, in that order. Atlanta, DC, Houston. Check out the link, man. Get the tickets so they leave. RSVP for free. Please only RSVP if you are actually in the city on that time and date, please. I will also be streaming the live events in all 3 cities. I'll be having a nice conversation with my co-host of The Unlikely Thruple, Jay the Gentleman, and Hope Giselle. We see in many different instances there are intersections of Black Congolese, Black Haitians, Black Dominicans, Black Puerto Ricans, and Black folks all throughout the diaspora that are also caught up in the grips of when we talk about being an immigrant. So I want to make sure you're being intersectional on that and not just erasing, you feel me, how there are folks in the middle. The second thing I want to, be mindful of is how Black folks are starting to talk about immigrants the way that white folks talk about us, and we can't do that. People and believe that, our way of being accepted by them, or our way of being able to prove our humanity, is by being nasty towards immigrant people. And I feel like with people of immigrant populations, and that this ain't gonna get us nowhere. What I know is that though there are a lot of Black folks that don't know the difference between a Haitian and a Congolese person, it's more white folks that don't know the difference between us and them. So when you are spewing this anti-immigrant rhetoric, or you being xenophobic, which is defined as being discriminatory versus somebody that speaks a different language or that come from a different country than you, recognize that you are in fact drinking the same Kool-Aid and spitting it out that was spit on you and your ancestors. And again, when they done with them, they're gonna be on you. You want to be real mindful of how we talk about Black jobs and how Black jobs are being lost to, immigrant populations, especially when you acknowledge that people ain't going into, construction jobs and being like, give me that hammer, give me that drill. There's an employer that's exploiting their labor that's giving your job to them. So when we start thinking about blame and onus, it's important that you don't direct the shit that should be directed at the person that's curating the policy and giving the jobs and signing the checks towards the person that's, the employee. That beef should be with the employer, not the employee. And it's just like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? As a Black person that's born and raised in Bryan, College Station, Texas, that now lives in Houston, around a lot of different Latino populations and people, that don't speak the same language as me, that's basically, undocumented, or that's, that got here legally, quote unquote. It's just not good for us to treat immigrants the way that white folks treat us.
I'm Neil Franklin. I'm a retired 34-year police veteran from the state of Maryland. Grew up in Baltimore, policed in the state of Maryland with the Maryland State Police, went up through the ranks, became a commander, head of training, did a lot of work in criminal investigation, narcotics investigation over the years there. Was a head of training for Baltimore for a number of years. And then for 10 years, I was the executive director of the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, which is a strong collaborative of not just police officers, but judges, prosecutors, corrections officials, federal agents, that group of folks who have worked all throughout the justice system. And now we're trying to better it. We're trying to take it to where it needs to be. Basically, we're trying to rebuild the daggone thing from scratch is what needs to happen, because the systems that have become established within that community over the decades post-slavery don't work for everybody.
Yeah.
So we need to.
You were a officer in Springfield, Ohio, and you had to deal with all of the anti-Black backlash of the climate that was created. What would you do? Or how would you navigate the climate, recognizing that Haitian immigrants right now are being treated oh so poorly?
Well, I think even before all this rhetoric started, stirring the pot there in Springfield, as soon as the immigrants started coming in, right, and just so people know, they are there legally, right? I would have started connecting with the community, right? You don't wait until something happens, right? So you go in, you make contacts. who are the community leaders in the community, who are the ones respected in the community, who are the ones that have good relationships with the immigrants who are coming in. So you establish right from day one good relationships. You gotta get to know people, and they have to get to know you, so that when something does happen, you you're not behind the curve. You've already got the relationships established and built. The trust is already there, and you can really nip things in the bud and stop things from escalating. Um, it will also help you with merging the new community with the established community,
Okay.
right?
Right now, it's only fueling a base that believes that Haitians are eating dogs and cats, and believes that the Congolese people are releasing prisoners that are being able to look at you upside your head and see if you Congolese or see if you Haitian. But they telling you the quiet part out loud. They love to criminalize black people for being crazy. You feel me? For being cannibals, for being criminals, for being thugs, for being drug dealers, and y'all going for the bait. Third point is, immigration has always been a racialized topic in our country. Always been a racialized topic in our country. Even individuals of white European descent right now that's considered white, back when they started coming over, maybe, you know what I'm saying, they had to deal with the racialization of how immigration has always been positioned in this country. But I do know the way that we talk about white immigrants coming over to the country, even when we're talking about the era of Ellis Island, it's not comparable to when we're talking about asylum seekers trying to get from Honduras, Colombia, Mexico, all these different countries down south, different energy in how we talk about them. Even though we was a country that once prided itself for being a country of immigrants, we're now able to rally entire political bases off of demonizing immigrants and immigration. Y'all don't think it's preposterous that both J.D. Vance and Trump have immigrant wives and they literally traveling the country spreading immigrant propaganda? Like, both of y'all married to immigrants. Something else I always find too crazy when it comes to immigration, man. When we start talking about slavery and reparations, white folks would be quick to talk about how their people immigrated over here after slavery happened or some shit like that. But as soon as we start talking about immigration in the current context, all of a sudden they become indigenous to the Americas and saying this is their country and they've been here and they had a right to be here. Like, the trick of time, man, is something I might end up throwing on y'all from Dr. Calvin Warren, because it comes up so much in how really people like to convolute and permute and really bend and fold time to always benefit them at the expense of other folks. And it's just kind of crazy when you think about it, because when they demonizing immigration and asylum seekers, they don't never have that same energy with their white ancestors that was leaving and seeking asylum over here in the Americas, and the whole colony that was being stolen from Native Americans. And that's the conversation right there. I don't know if you're ready for as well. There's a difference between being a colonizer and an immigrant, but I think most immigrants are settlers. And if we're thinking about this in the context of settler colonialism and the conversation of immigration in terms of settler colonialism, there's a lot to be unpackaged to how people are able to rise up and stand on the back of colonial violence at the same time claiming they have nothing to do with the colonialism. And I say it as somebody that is a descendant of, you know what I'm saying, African, you know what I'm saying, enslaved people that was here in this country, that also has a different orientation or a complex orientation or a different, you know what I'm saying, way of thinking about how I relate to the land and immigration. And we never have the beef with immigration towards Europeans that we do with people that are brown and black. I think that's something we gotta grapple with and really think about and sit with, you know what I'm saying, and how that white-black binary, that anti-blackness, that white supremacy is infused in our conversations about immigration and immigration policy. Also, when talking about immigration, people are not illegal. Their actions are illegal. When you say illegal immigrant, to me that presupposes that you're talking about an entire person's presence being illegal, and I think that that is very disingenuous, especially when you acknowledge that all of the Native American tribes and all their nations had different ways of doing citizenship and building community. Donald Trump and prior to 2025, they want to do mass deportation. And that's something that should scare us all, especially if you think that he's good with the economy. Mass deportation of millions of people that are a huge part of our labor force is not going to be good for the economy at all. Want to throw it out there, especially when you people are going for the okie doke and criminalization of immigrants and thinking about how they taking all our jobs. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, you trying to tell me that these folks snuck into America, quote unquote, how you said it, right? They stole your job and then outbid you for a house, because now they're trying to say the immigrants is getting houses. And they're trying to say the immigrants is getting FEMA. It's just like, there's a lot of sensationalized things that are being exaggerated that we should be very conscious and mindful of. No pun intended, man. Education is elevation. You feel me? Don't be lost in the sauce. So thinking deeply about shallow shit and then drowning your own understanding, especially when it comes to immigration, man.